So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. So we will be starting in 5 minutes. Thank you. All right, once again, good afternoon, everyone, and I would like to welcome you to our webinar with the title, XPosium, Driving Innovation Through Design Thinking. So I am Jay, and I will be your moderator for today's 1-hour session. So before we get to the exciting part, allow me to give you a brief introduction about Apex Global. So Apex Global is the learning solutions arm of ECC International, and we've been in the training and consulting space for over 20 years now, working with more than 30 partners and counting. So to date, we have delivered more than 300 varieties of courses for more than 1,000 customers within different fields. So before we begin, we have a few housekeeping rules. So today's session is being recorded. That will be available for viewing post-conference and for documentation purposes. So if you have any questions for the presenter, please use the chat feature in the Zoom session. You can also submit a question via chat box for the presenter to answer after the session. So if you have any technical questions, please reach out to us directly via chat. And please avoid anything that will cause distractions and make sure that you're on mute mode during the presentation. And more importantly, please enjoy today's webinar session. And of course, to finally introduce our speaker of today's webinar, he is a learning and development professional with over 38 years of corporate experience. He is a certified design thinking trainer and practitioner himself. He worked on various models like capability building, negotiation, KAM model, coaching model, competency assessment, performance conversations, and assessment centers to support the organizations. Associate Certified Coach, or ACC, by International Coach Federation, and Certified Master Trainer and Facilitator by the Carlton Advanced Management Institute are just a few of the certifications in his bucket. So let us all give a virtual round of applause to Sir Adhir Mathur. Good afternoon, sir.
Right. Thank you so much, Jay, for that introduction and also for those nice words. And good afternoon to each and every one of you. It's so nice to connect with you all. I'm feeling quite excited in this call with you. How are you all feeling? Would you like to share in the chat box, please? Would you like to share your feelings in the chat box? I'm feeling quite excited. Wow. Thank you so much, Neha, for putting up that feeling of greatness. How about others? What are you feeling? Thanks, Chicky, for that. You are also excited to be part of this webinar, right? Looking forward for feelings from others as well. Yeah, excited. Looking forward to a great new tip on problem solving. Thank you so much. Antonio is feeling excited. How about others? Would you also like to share your feelings? Looking forward for some more feelings here in the chat room. Wow, thank you so much. And with this, let us move on. We have seen many startup companies, growing, right? And many of the companies getting into the bucket of Fortune 500 companies. So design thinking has contributed greatly to those startups as much as to those 500 Fortune companies to improve their products as well as the services. We have also seen many innovations around, be it in the professional space or in the personal space. And let us now see how design thinking helps to transform business through innovation as well as customer-centric process. So what is it that we'll be doing in the next 1 hour? We'll be learning about the influence and impact of design thinking. Number 2, we'll also have a look at those key mindsets that govern design thinking. Number 3, we'll also have a look at the business value of design thinking. Number 4, we will also be looking at the implementation of design thinking. So let us look at the influence and impact of design thinking. Right, we are all in the digital world, right? I would say that we have all been transformed into the digital world, more so in the last couple of years. right? And let us now see what is happening around us in just 60 seconds, right? I'm talking about just 60 seconds. Any guesses around? So when it comes to internet, there have been more than 4.4 billion users every minute. And when it comes to Google servers, there have been 3.8 million searches happening on Google every minute. And when it comes to the websites which are being created, there are as many as 380 websites which are being created new every minute. And when it comes to Facebooks, we have all been on Facebooks, right? So 480 new accounts of Facebooks are being created every minute. And let us now look at those messengers of Facebook as well as the WhatsApp, which we all have been using day in and day out. 41.6 million messages have been sent on Facebook Messenger as well as on WhatsApp every minute. And what about the tweets? There have been 87,500 tweets which have been generating every minute. And finally, let us look at the YouTube uploads. 100 hours of new YouTube materials are being uploaded every minute, right? So and as I'm talking to you, as I'm speaking to you, right, these numbers are also increasing. And these numbers are increasing exponentially. So when I talk of exponential, it is only exponential businesses survive in the exponential world of ours, which is an exponential digital world. So when we look at the time and the rate of change which is happening around us, there has been an exponential transformation which is happening. In fact, when you look at the exponential growth, which is matching the market capacity as well as the consumer readiness. What about the competition? You will find many of the competitors are in the linear. Similarly, humans are also wired in such a way that we all think linear, right? What about you all? Do you think linear or exponential? Any thoughts here? Do you all think linear? The research tells us that we humans are all wired linear, right? And but linear is not an option here. So what is it? We need to be non-linear. So now let us look at the design thinking principle, which is talking about the non-linearity. It is totally non-linear. It means it is highly iterative. As you can see up on the screen here, it is highly iterative in the sense that you can always go back to the previous stage at any point of time, right? It is not in a linear fashion. We'll learn more about it as we move forward. Now let us look at the iceberg of design thinking. What is it that we see in design thinking? What are the perceptions around design thinking? Is what we see at the tip of the iceberg, right? What we see is just a design principle. We see some of the creativities. We see some of the post-its. Is that all about design thinking? This is just the tip of the iceberg, my friends. So when you go deep dive into the holistic nature of the design thinking, it is much more than that. It is all about the tools, techniques. It's all about human-centeredness of design thinking, which we'll learn as we move forward. So design thinking is also created around the three pillars of desirability, feasibility, and viability. So when we look at the three pillars, which are built to meet the human needs and wants and desires in order to make it technologically feasible and also commercially viable. So the solution that we are going to come out with in design thinking approach has to be commercially viable, has to be technologically feasible, as well as should be desirable by the humans. So what is it that I'm talking about? Right. So when we look at the design thinking, you may also get a query up in your mind saying that I have been doing business thinking. I've been doing traditional problem solving all my life, right? So what is so different in design thinking? So when it comes to business thinking, we have been solving problems all the while in our business environment. How is design thinking different? So in design thinking, it is more about the human centricity. It is more about the human-centered thinking. It is more about looking at who is my end user. That's how design thinking differs from business thinking. Now let us look at the second section, which is more about the mindsets that govern the design thinking. But before we do that, let's have a quick poll. Can I request Jay to run the quick poll, please?
All right, sir. So I'll be sharing my screen now. There you go. So I've sent also here in the chat box the link for this quick Mentimeter poll. So the question is, how often are you user-centric in solving day-to-day problems?
Can I look forward for your responses, please? Wonderful, wonderful. Keep it coming. Keep it coming.
All right, so we have 5 answers so far. More of them are answering often. They're often user-centric. So looking forward to receiving more responses in our Mentimeter poll. All right, more and more people are answering often.
Request everyone to use the link in the chat room and participate in the poll, please. Looking forward for your valuable response.
All right, so I think half of our participants have already answered. So we're looking for the others who haven't sent in their poll responses yet. Oh, we have one who answered not really.
Not really.
All right, some more answers for those who are often user-centric in solving their day-to-day problems. 15 responses. So I think we have I think like 3 more who haven't responded yet. Right, so most of our participants today, sir, are often user-centric when solving day-to-day problems, and some are just sometimes, and we have 2 participants who are not really user-centric. All right, let's give a few more minutes for those who haven't answered yet. We'll give it around 1 minute.
Yeah, can I request others also to participate, please? Thank you so much for participating, those of you who have answered.
Okay. There you go. So more answering. Right, sir, I think that most of our participants have already answered the poll. So here is the results. So 9 of our participants are often user-centric, 6 just sometimes, and 2 of them are not not really user-centric in solving day-to-day problems. Okay, turning it over to you, Sir Adhir.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jay, for running the poll here. And thanks everyone for participating in this poll. So what does it mean? It really clearly shows to us that almost 50% of you feel that we often think user-centric. What about the remaining part, remaining 8 of you? Remaining 8 of us think that we don't keep the human-centeredness in our approach while solving the problems, right? Let us move forward from here. Just a minute. Right. So now let us have a look at some of the mindsets, which drive the design thinking. There have been several international bodies which are talking about the different mindsets which are required for a design thinker. Number one, let us pick up from IDEOS. IDEOS is actually an abbreviation which talks about innovation, design, engineering, organization. That is IDEO. So this is a design thinking consultancy which talks about what are the mindset which is required for me to become a design thinker. Number one is empathy, right? Let us pick up from the results of the poll that we have just now participated in, right? So whom are we solving the problem for, right? Who is the person who is going to get affected? Who is the person who is having that unmet need? It is of course the end user, right? So if it is the end user for whom I'm looking at the solution, obviously I need to find a solution which is human-centered. It is highly user-centric. So empathy is all about looking at the end user. What are their unmet needs? What are their desires? What are their preferences? What do they actually want? What are the insights that I gather from them in order to proceed with the divergence and convergence and solutioning? So that is one of the mindset that we should always be having. Number two is the optimism. Optimism means I'm always looking at the possibilities. What are the various possibilities that are emerging when I look at the divergence and the convergence technique of ideation, right? I'm not looking at the run-of-the-mill routine solutions. I'm looking at something creative. I'll talk about creativity a little later. And the number three is embracing the ambiguity. There is so much of VUCA around us, right? There's so much of ambiguity around us, right? At times we may be a little uncomfortable with the ambiguity, but later on we should get comfortable. So design thinking works wonders when the problems are ill-defined. That's where we need to embrace the ambiguity. Sometimes the questions can also be, the problems can also be ambiguous. Number four is making it. Making it means make the prototype first. So in design thinking, we never launch a product directly, right, after coming out with a solution. So we always come out with a prototype. And prototype is the one which we always test it and get it validated by the end users. In case it is required, we again go back to my drawing board and again iterate it. So that's how the framework itself is so iterative. Learn from failure. This is something very interesting, right? Is failure good or bad? Many of you may think that failures are not good for us, but failure is an experience. Failure is an experiment. Design thinking tells very clearly it's good to fail early, fail fast, but succeed sooner. Elon Musk also says, that if you're not failing, you're not innovating. So we all learn from those failures. And when do we fail? Do we fail after launching the product? No, we don't fail after the launching the product. We fail at the time of iterations. So we fail at the time of prototyping. We fail at the time of validation. We fail at the time of maybe defining the problem. So we can always go back to the drawing board and learn from our experiments or experiences, which is nothing but the failure. The next one is iterate and iterate. It means this framework is so iterative in the sense that I can always go back to my drawing board and refine it a little bit so that it becomes more and more robust. And finally, creative confidence. One thing, humans are highly, highly creative. But do we use our creativity? May or may not all the time. So design thinking allows us to become more and more creative. It allows us to come out with those creative ideas in the ideation process, in the brainstorming process. So that's how we bring in the creative approach in our solutioning. Now let us have a look at some other mindsets as well. This is the mindset. These are the mindsets which are given by Stanford Design School of US. It also talks about show and don't tell. What does it mean? It means that I need to be more visionary. I need to be more, I would say, sketching the solution rather than telling the problem. Sorry, telling the answers. And focus on human values is again similar to the empathy, because I'm looking at the human-centeredness. Craft clarity. It means that I need to come out clearly with my solution. Be mindful of the process. Design thinking has got a framework, it has got a process. So from end to end, I should also be thinking of the process that I am going to follow. Embrace the experimentation, because in design thinking, we'll be doing many experimentations. We'll be looking at various possibilities. We'll be looking at, I would say prototypes, different prototypes. And we will figure out which is the one which is satisfying my end user. Radical collaboration. So do I work in silos? No, in design thinking, we don't work in silos. We always work in collaboration. Collaboration gives us that diversity of ideas. So we collaborate with different functions. So it's more of a cross-functional approach. We are biased towards action. So take more of action than the ideas, right? That's more about biasness towards the action. And then let us have a look at another set of mindsets. This is given by Product Development and Management Association, PDMA, which goes on to say that one should have a growth mindset. It means I should have the change agility. I should be able to think different. And I should be more people-centric in the sense that I should be human-centered. I should be looking at who is my end user. Holistic and integrative in the sense I should be looking holistically around the problem. What exactly is the solution that I'm going to come out with? Is it going to delight my end user? Flexibility and comfort with ambiguity. We have seen some time back that we are in a VUCA world, and many times the problems may present to us in a highly ambiguous way. Am I comfortable with that ambiguity? So design thinking allows us to drill down into the problem and spend more time on understanding the problem rather than solving the problem, right? So here we'll be spending more and more time in understanding the problem rather than jumping for the solution. And multimodal communication skills is all about different way in which we communicate. So we communicate not only in the form of verbal, we communicate in the form of sketches, we communicate in the form of a diagram, so on and so forth. Now let us go on to the third one, which is the business value of design thinking. Something very interesting is coming up here. Here is one study which says that of all the top reasons why projects fail, two are related to the user-centricity of the design thinking approach. Number one is badly defined requirements of the project itself and poor communications among customers and developers. What are your experiences and what are your thoughts? Have you also seen the projects failing because they are not user-centric in its approach? These are actually the findings of some of the researches which are done globally. So the product that I'm going to come out with has to be human-centered, has to be around the human needs and not around the animals or, of course, the robots around us, right? So the product that I'm going to come out with has to be, human-centered, and that generates value. And this can also generate revenue for the business. And here is a message. Thank you, Mr. Adir. I've got a question. Does design thinking work with all subjects, areas, and projects? Yes, Kate, I'll take it up a little later. Yes, you are right in saying that design thinking works very well with all the projects that we are taking up, right? Most of the projects, I'll talk to you a little later, most of the projects that many of the top organizations are taking up today, be it Google's, be it Apple's or Microsoft's or Airbnb's, all those companies are adopting the framework of design thinking. Hope it helps, Kate. Right, let us move on and have a look at this. When senior executives of some of the top-notch companies were asked, about their organization's greatest design weaknesses, they have come out with these 4 pillars. They have come out with these 4 themes. What are these 4 themes? Number 1 is the analytical leadership. What does it mean? It means I should be able to measure and drive design performance with the same rigor as it is done for revenues generation and as it is done for the cost. And it is more than a feeling. Number 2 is it's a cross-functional one. What does it mean? You must make it a more user-centric design. Everyone's a responsibility and not just a siloed function. It means it is not just one person who is working on design thinking. So ideally, it should be worked as a cross-functional team, right? In order to bring out that diversity of ideas, in order to bring out that creativity. So it is much more than one department or one person doing it. And number 3 is it's more user experience. So it is like, breaking down internal walls between physical, digital, as well as the service design, right? So we are looking at much more than a product alone. And lastly, it talks about the last theme, which is its continuous iteration. Remember in the mindset also, we spoke about iterations, iteration, and iteration. So it is all about, once you iterate, you are also ensuring that you are de-risking the development by continuously listening, testing, iterating with the end users, so that when you launch the product, you're not taking any risk. It will also cut down the cost. So it's more than a phase. And it also offers that exceptional user experience. This is something very interesting. This is the finding of McKinsey Design Index. So McKinsey Design Index is an online tool which allows leaders to assess their company's design performance. So what does it talk about here? Just a minute, I will move this a bit. Right, thank you. So it talks about companies with top quartile McKinsey Design Index, MDI, scores outperform industry benchmark growth by as much as 2 to 1. As I said, there are a good number of companies who are following the design thinking approach, right from Google's to Microsoft's to Apple's to Airbnb's, right? There are dozens and hordes of companies who are following the approach of design thinking, and they have grown exponentially. And you may ask me, okay, why design thinking? What is it that design thinking has done? Right? It helps you to improve your user experience. It also generates competitive advantage and increases the top line as well as the bottom line. It anticipates new issues in the sense that in case there is any complex problem, right? You can think of what is the solution that you're going to come out with in case there is any problem that is going to come up with. It aims to wicked problems. As I said, some of the problems can be ill-defined. Some of the problems are very complex in nature, very wicked in nature. So design thinking helps in understanding those complex problems, those wicked problems, and come out with solutions. It also helps you to generate revenue, as we have seen some time back. And it also helps in the cost cutting. How does it help in cost cutting? When you are going to validate the end product with the end users, right? When you are going to come out with the MVP, minimum viable product, and going to test it with the end users, right? You are ensuring that you are not taking any risk. So it is going to cut down the cost in a way. Right. It's time for some activity and some fun, right? So it's time for a quick activity here, which we are going to use it on a Miro board. I'd like to invite Jay once again to help us. I'll unshare my screen.
All right.
Meanwhile, I'll explain by the time Jay helps us in putting us into the breakout rooms. What we're going to do in the breakout rooms is we are going to discuss about 2 of the very important topics. We all use mobile phones. Many of us use also Apple phones, right? So when it comes to using the Apple phone, just reflect for a while and think, before Apple came out with the iPhone, there were a ton of smartphones available on the market, right? So what is it that has made Apple click today in the market?place? Number 2 situation is there have been good number of social networks which were available, like MySpace, Friends, Hi-Fi, right? All these were available much before Facebook came, right? So what is it that has made Facebook click today, and what is it that has made Facebook what it is today? So group number one is going to discuss about Apple's iPhone. What is it that has made iPhone click today? And group number two is going to discuss in their group about what is it that has made Facebook click today in the social networking sites which are available, right? So please talk about these two situations in your respective groups, and the time that is available to us in each of the breakout room is going to be 10 minutes, and make the best use of the time and let the creativity flow.
All right, thank you, Sir Adir. So let me just give you a quick run through of how to use the Miro board. So, all right. So I will send the link here in our chat box. Hold on. Okay. So here you go. And once you enter the link, it might prompt you to just create a quick login account. So you can just use your Google or other accounts that you use. And once you're in, so let me just show you how to navigate it. So by scrolling your mouse, it will go up and down. And if you press Control while scrolling your mouse, it will zoom in and it will zoom out. And I will also show you how to include text. So just here in this control panel at the left side, you should see these features. So to add text, just click here and then click anywhere here in the board to type something. There you go. And to delete, just select it once more and press delete. And to add sticky notes, click this icon. You can pick whatever color you like and add it on the board. And again, to delete, just select it and press delete. And I will also show you how to add images. So with these two arrows pointing to the right, you can click here stickers if you want to add stickers, or you can just go and search for a picture, copy it, and then paste it here. There, it's quite small. So you can just enlarge it like so. Okay. So do we have any questions in using the Miro boards? Is everyone able to access the link as well? All right. So I will divide the participants are already divided into two random groups. So we have 8 participants per room. Okay, so I will now open the room and give everyone 10 minutes to do this activity. Thank you, everyone. Oh,
let the creativity flow and have fun.
Yeah. Miss Shi, can I ask what problem you're encountering in accessing the Miro board? Oh, yeah, it will be a bit of problem using it in mobile, but maybe one of your group mates can just share, and then you can just tell them your insights so that they can type it in the board for you. Oh, sorry, let me delete this. All right, so I'll be opening our breakout rooms now and see you all back at the main room in 10 minutes. Thank you. Miss Julianne, are you having problems accessing the Miro board or going to the breakout rooms? Hello, Miss Julianne, can you hear me? I think she's away from her device. Hi, Miss Kate. So, oh, hello, Sir Mark. We're currently doing an activity, so I'll just put you in group two. You can just ask around what they're doing. All right, welcome back to the main session. So here I can still see that some are still doing their activity, but I think we can head on to Sir Ed here for insights on the activity that they've done. Oh, you're muted, sir.
Welcome back, everyone, to the common plenary session. And I'm sure you all must have had a lot of fun and creativity flowing into both the breakout rooms. I could see so many colorful sticky notes, post-it notes on both the walls. Wonderful. Thank you so much for this participation and this activity. There is one thing common, in both the rooms which has happened, right? So if you look at what is the commonality which has come out in both these businesses of mobile phones as well as on the social media, one thing which I was observing, which is quite common in both the breakout rooms, was there was a clear-cut emphasis on the client or on the users, right? Number two, another common thing which has come out was there has been a lot much of emphasis on creating that exceptional user experience, right? And in a way, what are we doing? We are actually talking about the application of design thinking framework. So when we are talking about that, offering that exceptional user experience, we are talking about that emphasis on the end users, right? So we are actually applying the framework of design thinking. So some of the examples that I could see here was, you're talking about engaging with the worldwide users, accessibility, security to the end users, right? You're talking about the soft button, which is used by the end users, the security, the operating system, so on and so forth. It is all about the desirability, feasibility, and viability, the three pillars of design thinking. Wonderful. Just give me a minute of time. Right. After this great fun activity that we have had in both the breakout rooms, where one thing which has come out very clearly is the user centricity, right? And also the offering that user experience, which is going to be exceptional, which is going to delight the end user, right? Let us move on into how do I implement the design thinking? How do I take it forward now? So as you have seen some time back, that design thinking is highly iterative process. It means I can always go back to the previous stage, right? It is, of course, not linear, right? It is highly user-centric, as we have been discussing for the last 45 minutes. And this is something which is so very creative. And there are not many tools and techniques which are involved here. So as you can see, it encompasses 5 stages, right? From the first stage, the primary stage is, of course, empathize. That's where we reach out to the end users and gather a lot many insights. And then we move on to defining the problem, and then we get into the ideation, creativity, and then we develop the prototype, and then we go to the end users for validation and testing. And as you have seen, there are so many back arrows. It means at any point of time, I can always go back to the previous stage and go back to my drawing board and iterate it, make it more refined, make it more robust, so that the end product that I'm going to come out with is going to be much more refined, and there are no big risk involved after I launch the product. And what you can see here is at each of the stage of the framework of design thinking, there are a lot many tools and techniques which are involved, which we'll be using, which we'll be discussing in our certification course. So right from empathize to define, to ideate, to prototype, to testing, as well as reflections, there are a lot many tools and techniques which are involved, and which makes it all the more robust, which makes it all the more refined. Just a minute. Right, so how do I implement design thinking? So let us think as a beginner and start from the scratch. So one should be non-judgmental, one should be unbiased, one should be looking at it as a fresh, right? And should not be carrying any baggages of biasness or being judgmental, because we have been solving problems all the while, be it in a professional or personal space. So we should drop all those baggages of what we have been doing. Number 2 is conduct those low risk experiments to build your creative confidence. Remember, we all are highly creative. At many times, we have been suppressing our creativity. So let that creativity come out. Number 3, discover a variety of ways to coach and facilitate the creative thinking, co-creation, as well as the collaboration with different cross-functional teams. Ensure that your users' experience is top of the mind, because we are all here for the providing that exceptional user experience to my end users. Number 5, assist teams in generating ideas, rephrasing existing problems, and unlocking the provocative insights from their research. So we are all here to come out with many new ideas. In the ideation stage, which is the core of design thinking, it is all about divergence, where we are going to come out with many new ideas. It's all about idea generation. And then we do the evaluation of those ideas and then take it forward from there. And lastly, encourage multiple perspectives. Every idea is important. Every perspective becomes important to us. And we should encourage everyone to come out with those ideas and perspectives. Lastly, take advantage of seasoned practitioners' expertise in design thinking, and then how do I take it forward from here? So design thinking, as you have seen, is a very powerful tool which can be used to solve difficult, ill-defined, wicked, complex business problems. And to use it successfully, you need to apply it to the problems, both big as well as small, right? And if you want to learn more about design thinking, explore our course, which is a design thinking practitioner course. So more about the course, which is a design thinking practitioner course, I would request Jay to talk about it.
Right. Thank you so much, Sir Adhere. So this is our 16-hour design thinking practitioner course. It is spread over 2 weeks, 4 hours per day. So in this 2-day action-oriented workshop, you will work in small teams to experience a customer-centric approach to problem solving by reimagining the end-to-end customer experience journey. So we use a blended learning approach to ease the learning experience, and upon successful registration, candidates will be provided 3 months of free access to our online learning portal, SkillEd. So this has a lot of additional references and quick bites that you can access from anywhere and anytime. All right. All right, so here you can see our registration link, and my colleague Sneha has also posted it in our chat box. So if you guys are interested to know more and join our upcoming program, so feel free to keep in touch with us via the email that is shown on screen and here in the chat box as well. All right. Okay, so thank you so much, Sir Adhere. We really learned a lot from this insightful discussion. So I learned that instead of developing a product and then convincing customers to buy it, so we should create offerings based on an in-depth understanding of customer desires. So with that in mind, once again, thank you, Sir Adhere. And I hope that you all enjoyed the insightful discussion. Now the room is open for some questions for our speaker. So ayan, I can see here one question from Ms. Madeline Ann Patrice. So will IT culture support the design thinking mindset?
Yeah, thank you so much for putting it up. So as you can see, design thinking is the one such framework which is applied by many IT companies globally, right from Microsoft's to Google's to any of those IT giants. They have been following the framework of design thinking today. And design thinking allows us to use a blend of analytics as well as creativity. It blends very well. It marries the right side of the brain with the left side of the brain. Right, so you can as well use the framework of design thinking in IT culture. Hope it helps.
Thank you, sir. I hope did that answer your question, Miss. All right. Thank you, Ms. Madeline, for your question. So do we have other questions from... All right, here we have from Ms. Julianne de los Reyes, how to identify what and why customers really want.
This is a very interesting question. Thank you so much for putting it up, Giuliano. And this is what actually makes design thinking framework different from a business thinking or from a traditional problem solving techniques. So in design thinking, we spend a lot of time on the first step of design thinking framework, which is empathy, right? So we spend much of time in understanding the problem rather than jumping for the solution. So in empathy, what is it that we do? We go back to our end users and talk to them, do a survey, do a interview, right? Observe them, right? Because many times what they say, what they do is going to be different. And we are going to observe many things when we are talking to them. We are going to gather many insights while we are talking to them. Then we come back and craft that problem statement, which we call it as a point of view statement, right? So I don't take the problem statement offhand. I go back to my end users, understand what are their pain points, what are their actually unmet needs, what are their desires, what is it that they want, and then only I come back and craft my problem statement. And from there on, I start moving into the ideation and then start looking into the divergence and convergence techniques and then look at the solutioning. So that's what it makes as different as compared to the traditional problem solving technique. Hope it helps, Julian.
Thank you, sir. So we have one more question here from Chicky. How can design thinking be integrated into marketing and advertising?
Wonderful. It's again a great question. How can I integrate design thinking into marketing and advertising? So in advertising as well as in marketing, what is it that we are doing, right? We are actually going to fulfill the unmet need of my users. So in marketing, what is it that I'm doing? I'm going to offer them a solution, which is my product, which will fulfill their unmet need. So how do I figure out what is their unmet need? So I'm going to figure out their unmet need only when I go and talk to them, which is the empathy stage, right? So how do I ensure that I'm going to offer them a solution, which is my product, which I'm going to market, right? Which is the final product, which I do a prototype and which I do a validation and testing. So when I do my validation and testing of my minimum viable product with my end users, I'll come to know what is it actually that they want. Then only I get into the marketing part of it. And then after that, I get into the advertising part of it. So design thinking is the one approach which embeds, which integrates very well with marketing and advertising. Because with design thinking, we'll come to know about what exactly my end user wants. What are their needs? What are the preferences? Because the preferences keep changing over a period of time. So I'll come to know what is it that they want actually.
All right. So I
hope it helps.
All right. So I think we have time for one last question here from Ms. Antoinette de Castro. What, according to you, is the best ideation technique?
Wonderful. Again, a great question here. So in design thinking, as you have seen, it allows us to be very much more creative. If you have seen around, both in the personal as well as the professional spaces, there are many innovations happening. In fact, I would say there are many disruptive innovations which are happening, which are disrupting the incumbents in any of the sectors today, more so in the last couple of years after the COVID has hit us. So when you have seen so many of innovation happening, it is a result of design thinking. Design thinking allows us to become highly creative, right? It allows us to come out with something more creative than what is existing in the marketplace. It allows us to come out with those different brainstorming techniques that are being used. There are many, design thinking brainstorming techniques which are available to us, which will bring out those creative juices, which will allow us to come out with those prototypes and then launch a new product, which is a total innovation by itself.
All right. Thank you so much, Sir Adhir. So with that, I would be now concluding our session for today. So once again, thank you so much, Sir Adhir, for that very informative
My pleasure.